All right. Welcome. I think stream has started. Okay. Seems like we are ready. Hello everyone. It's mostly going to be a Q&A stream. Depends on how many questions there are. If you want typical schedule, if you want, you want to support this channel financially, you can super chat or Patreon or whatever. Also, kind of just channel updates, what I've been working on these last couple of days, what I've been doing, and pretty much finish the video with that. And there's probably going to be streams tomorrow and the day after, I think, on different topics, and just things that I'm generally working on. And you normally, again, the schedule is that at least one video a week. That's my personal schedule goal. I have not strayed away from it, not once. Maybe there was one day where I didn't upload for 9 days. That's like the most. But that's the general schedule. And beyond working on that, I've also been working on this freaking dang. This is so dirty. I gotta get this cleaned later. Besides that, just reading books in general. But I already announced this. And by the way, if this stream is working, be sure to let me know, because if I don't know, then there's a problem, right? But besides that, I've been working on if you watched my commentary on Genesis stream, I told you that I've been working on either a book or just some long writing about it, something like that. It's on hiatus at the moment. Like half of it is done. I'll probably go again. It's just that like it took a lot of energy and effort from me. And also another thing is, and I kind of wasn't really sure if I should have done that, but an article on the Sacred Heart, which is going to be a lot more comprehensive, more in-depth, and more precise. It's going to be published on Patristic Faith eventually. I don't know when. I'm working on it right now. The Word document is in here right now, and it's already 5 pages. It just took me 10 minutes to write 5 pages. But then again, I just do double paragraph spacing, so it's probably shorter than it is right now. But obviously, it still needs a lot of work. So that's kind of general announcement that I want to make. Other than that, some additional things for Patreon might be possible. Don't really know what. It's probably going to be revealed in the future. And as usual, this Q&A session, if you want to make use of it, now that you have the chance, you can ask questions in the live chat. I will most likely answer them. If it's something that I can't answer, I'm not going to waffle around. I'm just going to say, look, I can't answer that question, but I can point you to something that can and does indeed answer that question, if it's something that I just don't know much about, right? So having said all of that, let me shield this stream. It can be basic questions, it can be difficult questions. I'm ready, and hopefully, all right. If you have any on your mind, at everyone. Are you going to at everyone? You're about to mention 670 plus people. Yes. And boom. You're going to mention 336 plus people. Yes. Send. All right. Things are not going good elsewhere, apparently. So, all right, we're already getting some questions. So this is who is the Jesus Christ? How do I know him? I think your English, either this person's English might not be the best, or maybe I'm just a stupid person, but I'll answer it according to how I understand what the question is. Who is Jesus Christ? Well, I've actually done a stream on that specifically, but a short answer will be Jesus Christ is the Word of God. He is the Word of God that existed before all ages. He is divine. He, as John says, was with God and he is God. And in the latter days, that is, in the first century, he was born from the Virgin Mary and the Holy Spirit. He took on a human nature. He didn't take on a human person, he took on a human nature and lived until until his 33rd year as he was crucified. And he is also the Messiah of the Old Testament, prophesied Messiah of the Old Testament. There are various different prophecies regarding him. Like Isaiah, for example, talks about how the Messiah is going to be born from a virgin, and his name is going to be Emmanuel, which means God with us. Or Isaiah 53 that talks about how the suffering servant is going to die for the sins of others and be persecuted. And the significance of it is, first of all, by taking on human nature, he has deified us and opened the door for us to participate in God. This is why 1 Timothy 2:5 states that there's one mediator between man and God, and that's Christ. And many people think that that means that you can't have priests confessing. You can't, no confession allowed or anything like that. That's not what 1 Timothy 2:5 means. It means that there's only one person who is both natures, God and man. It's Jesus Christ, right? In his person, he mediates the two natures. And so by doing so, he has mediated and fixed the relations between man and God, because the relation was broken due to sin. And so he took on human nature to deify us. He did human actions and activities to deify human activities, and he was crucified due to his own people rejecting him, due to us, colloquially speaking, persecuting him. But he was also crucified because it was prophesied, and in his crucifixion, he took on death in his human body and went to Hades, preached the gospel, and opened the gates of heaven so that we might be part of the divine council, so to speak, that we might be at the right hand of God the Father, which is what the ascension is about. Christ didn't need to ascend in order to be co-equal with God. He ascended in his humanity to the right hand of the Father so that we become inheritors of the Father's throne. And we become inheritors by baptism, which adopts us into his church. Baptism is a form of adoption. You receive the Spirit, you become adopted as a son of God. So Christ is the Son of God in the sense of nature. We become sons of God by grace. So we are adopted, whereas Christ genuinely is naturally the Son of God. That's the difference between the Son of God in the sense of us and the Son of God in the sense of what Christ is. So this is who Jesus Christ is. He's the Word of God that incarnated, suffered in his humanity, died, was resurrected in the same human body. And it's pretty much what I will say. How can we know who Jesus Christ is? I mean, if you want to talk about secular hostile witness, there is in fact an image. I think I might have that image in my folder. But there's various different hostile witnesses to Christ from secular sources, so that's outside of the Bible. Josephus is one of them, but there's more than just Josephus. I'll fix that eventually. Every time I move, my chair is really shaky, so it just I can't find the image now though. You're gonna have to give me a second, but there's various different historical testimonies regarding extra biblical sources of Jesus. Yes, I found it. All right. So, no, I did not want to see the screen. I want to see the image. Thank you. So, this, as you can see, the hostile ancient testimony of Jesus Christ. It's not just scripture, even though technically speaking, scripture I think is sufficient enough evidence, but for those who believe it is not sufficient enough, we have more sufficient evidences from Josephus, Celsus, Suetonius, Pliny the Younger, Phlegon, Bar Serapion, etc., etc. So that's how we can know. Well, we know from scripture, from God's revelation, but we can also know from ancient historical statements concerning him. But I think we can mainly, I think what this boils down to is not how can we 100% absolutely be certain today that Jesus Christ existed 2,000 years ago. If you want to ask a question like that, you got to realize you can ask a question about like that about anyone else. What's your evidence of the existence of Plato? Like a couple books, right? You know, what's your evidence of a X historical event happening? Well, you have documents, and what if those documentations were just written by someone else, etc. So there's a lot of different questions that you can ask. If you really want to be like that, you can doubt anyone's existence. So for example, there are people that doubt Shakespeare's existence. Did Shakespeare exist, right? So there is, in fact, if you type "Did Shakespeare exist" on YouTube, you're going to have there's going to be like a historical scholar that's going to argue he didn't exist because he's using the same exact method of argumentation of how people who don't believe in the existence of Christ, you know, in historical scholarship, read the position that Christ didn't exist is actually totally ludicrous. There's a lot of evidence towards his existence. If you're going to doubt that, you can doubt anything in history. So really, I think the question boils down to not whether he existed or not, but whether the faith of Christianity is consistent and not contradictory, and if it's true. I think that's the most important question: is Christianity true? Is the metaphysic, the religion, the philosophy of the religion, is it true? The question is not, is it useful? The question is not, does it help me in my personal life? The question is it true? Ultimately speaking, that's how I will answer that. And okay, so we got a super chat by Yak Yak. He asks, "Hey, are the Coptics good Orthodox? I am black and feeling lost from my old Baptist church with scandals, and Orthodox seems interesting." So, so it seems like yes, indeed, you are a beginner from what I can guess, and you're interested in Orthodoxy. Welcome to your journey. But I will say regarding Coptics, Ethiopians, etc. So although they have the name Orthodox, that name is colloquial, right? So there's a difference between the Oriental Orthodox Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. The Eastern Orthodox Church holds to the first 7 ecumenical councils. And the first 7 ecumenical councils are basically the dogmatic synods in early Christianity that settled several disputes regarding Christ. So the Oriental Orthodox accept only the first 3 ecumenical councils. They accept Nicæa, which talks about how God is eternally Father and that Christ is consubstantial with the Father. They accept Constantinople I, which rejects heresies such as Apollinarianism, Eunomianism, and basically affirms the Trinity and uses the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed that we have today. And then they affirm Ephesus, which relates to whether we can call the Virgin Mary the Mother of God and the unity of Christ's personhood. So the Fourth Ecumenical Council was about whether Christ is in 2 natures or not. And this is due to Eutyches, who believed that Christ was a mixed essence of humanity and divinity. In fact, Eutyches in the Home Synod of Constantinople in 448, in a very strange manner, said Christ is consubstantial with God and with Virgin Mary, but he's not consubstantial with the rest of humanity. So that's kind of a very strange doctrine that Eutyches promoted, and the Home Synod condemned him. Then there was a Council of Ephesus in 449, Ephesus II, which exonerated him and punished certain bishops. And then there was Chalcedon that reversed the decisions made by Ephesus II. And so the Orientals hold to Ephesus II and Ephesus III, which is, I think, in the 6th century. And that really isn't a council, that's more of like an encyclical letter. So they have their own separate dogmatic letters. But the general difference between the Copts and us is that we believe Christ is 2 natures. We believe he's man and God. We believe that Saint Paul says that Christ took on 2 forms. And so that's what we believe, whereas the Coptics believe that Chalcedon was an Nestorian council. So I will suggest to you, if you want to go to an Orthodox church, I will recommend you to go to a Greek Orthodox church or an Antiochian Orthodox church, or any church that is part of the canonical Eastern Orthodox Church, whereas the Coptic Church, Syriac Church, Ethiopian churches, those are part of the Oriental communion. And so I have a video series based on, why Oriental Orthodoxy is wrong. I've specifically done studies on that. I've read several different books. If you're interested in that, you can check that, but it can be a bit difficult for someone that's kind of newly starting this journey to kind of understand what's right or what's wrong. But I want to kind of, make my case shortly to show you the dogma of the two natures in Christ by showing you this article that I have written in, more than a year ago now, which is on Church Fathers on the two natures of Christ. So this is a collection of quotes from Church Fathers that speak about Christ being in two natures before Chalcedon. And so one of the, basically, the term that they like to use is one incarnate nature, and nature and hypostasis pretty much mean the same thing in Oriental terminology, whereas we make a distinction. Nature answers the question of what that thing is. Hypostasis or person answers the question who that thing is. And so for example, we will understand that St. Paul in Philippians 2:5-11 speaks of Christ being in the form of God and in the form of a bondservant, that is man. We will consider form there to mean nature. For example, form is in fact one of the patristic terms for nature. St. Cyril understands form to mean nature. St. Athanasius does the same. I mean, it's in their writings. So St. Paul pretty clearly says that Christ is in the form of God and in the form of man. So he's in two forms, that is two natures. St. Gregory of Nyssa speaks about how raising up Lazarus from the dead is not proper to his humanity, but is proper to his divinity. And it's not proper to the divinity to cry for Lazarus. So the one person of Christ does these two things in its proper mode. He does human things a formula that I like using is that he does human things in a divine manner and divine things in a human manner to exemplify the unity of the two natures while also protecting their distinction. And so we believe that the two natures of Christ are undivided, unconfused, they're not mixed, right? So that's what we believe. So we don't separate them like Nestorius does. We don't separate them into two persons. And I just want to kind of keep this basic. If you want to go more in depth, if people want to go in depth about this, I can answer those questions. Just for this specific question in Super Chat, that's what I'm going to be answering. But there's various different documents to evidence from church fathers, early church fathers, that speak of Christ being in two natures. Here's another from Saint Hilary of Poitiers. See his divine nature and the power to raise again, and recognize in his death the dispensation of his manhood, right? So death is proper to his humanity, but raising himself from the dead is proper to his divinity. And that the full reality of each nature abides in each, right? Saint Sylvester of Rome, Saint Miltiades, Saint Cyril of Alexandria even, right, from the Glaphyra, he says that we understand that the two small living clean birds represent the winged creatures, the man from heaven that is into natures, right? Or festal letter, these statements as well, festal letters, or the difference of the natures, you get the idea, basically, right? Oh, it happened again. This is never going to be freaking fixed, is it? Give me a second. This one I particularly like from St. John Cassian, because he's an Eastern saint in the West who opposed Nestorius, by the way. This is from his books against Nestorius, and he says that, well, those who say that Christ is one person in two natures are dogmatically correct. Whereas the Orientals believe that's a heretical statement. So the Oriental Church believes, dogmatically speaking, of course, today they have different views. They have changed their understanding. So a lot of them will say, Chalcedonian terminology is not inherently heretical, but historically speaking, it was always treated heretically. If you read my article on patristic faith, give me a second. Hope you didn't see anything bad from the... Okay, it was nothing. Patristic faith. If you see my article here. Oh no, we saw David's homepage. Your browser's Reddit. Oh no, what are we gonna do? I browse my football team's page. That's all I use it for. But yeah, so if you read this article, this gets into a really in-depth history and sophisticated arguments regarding Theophysite Christology and Monophysite Christology, or Miaphysite Christology, what I want to call it. Pretty much gets into it. Of course, this is really short. An Oriental might look at this and answer, for example, David, you didn't mention how Saint Kirill talks about Christ being one nature. I have many different videos talking about that. I do recognize that he does that, but in the Fifth Council, we actually do have an Orthodox way of understanding the formula, one nature of God, the Word enfleshed. And that is, one of them is, for example, the one nature is a divine nature, and it becomes enfleshed. Enfleshed means that it takes on human nature. So it can vindicate two natures, for example. Another example is that maybe nature just means hypostasis. That's how, for example, Theodoret understood, is that if you mean one hypostasis, then yeah, that sounds reasonable. Even Theodoret, who's a crypto historian at the very least, believed that, right? So even historians could accept that formula, is the point. So that's how I will answer that question. Thank you, Flooded Basement, for the donation. And Sebastian Lopez, $10. Thank you for your work. Appreciate it, Sebastian. Thank you for the Dallas. And hopefully that answers your question. But let's scroll back up, because that took a long time and people are asking more and more questions. But where can I find? Wait, is the term repose specifically used for people who fall asleep peacefully in the Lord? I think so. I don't know. I don't know much about it, but I don't know. That's a good question. I think if you ask your priest, he will, if you ask an Orthodox priest, they will definitely be able to answer that question, because that's their domain. But I will say, I think that makes sense. But at the same time, I think we can use that terminology for people who died outside the church, maybe. But I think that's specifically for people inside the church, right? Not that it implies that they're instantly going to heaven or anything like that. But we also pray for for repose, right? A repose, instead of kind of like dying in pain, right? Heretics usually die in pain, right? Arius died pooping his pants, for example, pooping his intestines out is an example of that. All right. Off the top of your head, is there a story of a saint's life that stands out to you? Saint David Komnenos, because he's my patron saint. Who and why? It's because he was the last emperor of Trebizond, and he was also the last Roman emperor or ruler or noble, basically, that had a territory. And after losing his empire, he made the very difficult decision of whether he should defend or whether he should surrender. If he surrenders, then the inhabitants of the city are alive. And in fact, I will say that decision might be the reason why there are still Pontic Greeks that exist today, right? Because if you defend the city till the death, a lot of your own people can just not exist, and that's just replacement, right? Whereas yes, the replacement did happen some way, somewhat, right? It did happen, but not to the extent that it could have happened, right? So he made a difficult decision. He relocated to Edirne, and he was framed by the government because they were afraid that he might, that people might rally around him, because he was still, he was a claimant to the throne of the Ottoman Empire still, technically speaking. And so he was framed, and he was basically said, if you convert to Islam, we'll let you live. And he didn't convert to Islam. And for that, he suffered for his fate along with his family. I believe the other saints, the other people were, I think one of them was his one son, two nephews, one niece. I think that's how it was. But Saint David specifically, yeah, that stands out for me a lot. As my patron saint. Is it wrong if your icon corner faces south? It should face east, but it's if you can't, like, if it literally can't, like, it messes up your housing arrangement, like, it's pretty difficult to do that, then having them face in any direction is not a bad thing, right? So that's kind of how I do in my own house. I don't, if I want them to face a certain direction, it will be very difficult, if not impossible, for me personally. But that's generally a good practice and something that you should try to do. Where can I find intercessory prayers to specific saints, such as Saint Lazarus, but other saints? Are you saying, like, is in what websites you can check? Because if you check Orthodox Wiki, you will see there will be troparions and kontakions, if that's kind of what you're asking for, because those are a form of intercessory prayers. If you're asking for specific intercessory prayers, then I personally usually just, I don't want to talk about my prayer life, but I'll do it for help, to help you. Usually, in your prayers you say, through the prayers of all the saints. I basically say, through the prayers of all the saints, namely XYZ, right? That's how I usually do. And if you are going to be praying for something specific, right? So let's say, for example, you are going to go fishing. So you're going to be asking intercessory prayers from Saint Nicholas, Bishop of Myra, aka Santa Claus. You're going to be asking because he's the patron saint of fishers, to my knowledge, right? Either that or he's a patron saint of boats, like boat sailing. Anyways, it's just an example illustration. You can kind of just say, as I undertake, as I go fishing, through the prayers of Saint Nicholas, may my harvest be bountiful. Something like that, right? I think what really is important is not the external words you use, but the internal screams of your heart. That's what's really the most important part. If you have that locked, then I believe that it counts very good. But if you're, again, asking for specific, you can find specific intercessory prayers to certain saints on Google. But I think the Troparion and Kontakia are kind of like good to use because they are intercessory and they also glorify those saints, right? So I think you want to use them as well if you want like specific attention from them. But it also really depends on how much you pray. Like if you pray a lot, then you can spend, a lot of time asking for the intercession. If you're someone whose prayers last for only like 5-10 minutes, which you should not be ashamed of that. Everyone starts somewhere, right? Not everyone's going to be a spiritual spetsnaz praying for 3 hours, like in one sitting. It's very difficult to do, right? Let alone cease, without ceasing. But if your prayers are like 5-10 minutes and you read from a prayer book, then kind of just saying through the prayers of all the saints, namely Saint XYZ, I think that's sufficient enough. But again, I'm not your spiritual advisor. That's a question you can ask to your spiritual father about how you should pray these things. I'm just kind of like, because everyone is unique in this manner. Everyone has a unique journey in these things. So I kind of want to cover my bases. So hopefully what I've said at the very least helps you somewhat. And there's a prologue of Ohrid too, by the way. You can maybe check that. There's Furkan Elmas. But I said that not a Turk. Furkan Elmas asks, do you think that Turks are looking into Christianity? I've got a feeling that many people are leaving Islam aside because of the Islamic politics of the AKP and refugee situation. I could talk a lot about that. Yeah. Do I think that Turks are looking into Christianity? I am seeing that. Like I am seeing that people are getting interested in it because a lot of Turks these days are what I see from this generation compared to the previous generation, which like mine, I guess, like my era, is that a lot of Turks are getting more interested in just like international things, right? They're getting more interested in, like, they care about learning English, they care about learning different cultures and their histories, and so inadvertently they find out about Christianity one way, shape, or form. And so as a result, they look into Christianity and think, this religion doesn't sound bad. This religion sounds interesting. Sometimes they say, well, so this looks way better than Islam, right? And they read about it, they look into it, and eventually they convert. I've seen people do that. I've seen people respect Christianity. I remember my cousin like invited me to meet his friends, and his friends like are very atheistic people, and they like make fun of everything. Like they're the kind of like, we don't respect anyone's deep values kind of people. And then an hour later, like we spent like 5 hours together. 4 hours of it was them asking questions about Christianity to me, because my cousin basically said, "Oh yeah, he's my cousin there. He's a Christian. So if you want to know things about Christianity, then you can ask him." It's basically what it said, and just ended up being that. And I will say that like it was a really good exchange, right? They were really interested. Are they going to convert? Like I can't speculate about that. Only God knows. But they were, at the very least, they seem to. They some of them thought like, oh man, this like my mind is blown basically with some of the things that they were hearing. It was just me, saying similar things in a more condensed, basic manner than what you usually hear me from my channel, because I try to keep things much more higher level here, because that's the standards I want to live by. That's why I talk about difficult patristic theology, not because it's more important than scripture. Scripture is more important. It's because I want to keep the standards high, right? I think a lot of people already talk about scripture on YouTube. You can find them. You can read commentaries by church fathers and things like that. But reading difficult patristic debates and theology, that's very unpopular at the moment. So that's why I specifically do that. One of the things that they like, for example, is that, well, these Christians have a bunch of saints. This guy's quoting Saint Gregory the Theologian, Saint John Damascus, Saint Maximus, Saint Gregory Palamas, like all of these people. Like you don't have like, that's like really interesting. So that's one of the things that these people like. So there's that. In terms of the Islamic politics of Slovakia and the refugee situation, so usually in Europe, the right-wingers are the anti-refugee people, right? In Turkey, the right-wingers are the pro-refugee party. And one of the things that they usually say is, oh, they're Islamic brothers, right? Let them in. But so a couple of days ago, and I posted this on Twitter, a couple of really interesting events happened in Turkey. All of them done by immigrants, except for like one. They were like really nasty, like a child being Joe Biden, in a mosque, a guy pissing in a fountain, public indecency, a man lying naked on a public bench, a man and a woman not even gonna fill that sentence. I'm not kidding. This stuff happened in the same day, and most of them happened in Istanbul. In Antalya, there was a woman walking around just totally, but like the country turned into GTA overnight. Okay, and a lot of people realized, and there's a guy that burned himself on Taksim Square around the Galata Tower, which is crazy because I've gone there many times. And so a lot of people are realizing, wow, only the guy who burned himself was Turk. The public indecency thing, they said, oh, they are Turkish citizens. The guy's a Pakistani. Okay, the guy's a Pakistani and the woman is some European woman, like whatever, right? Everyone else is just refugees, immigrants, etc. So a lot of Turks are leftist Turks, especially, but even right-wing Turks are realizing, we should, this is enough, right? And since 2015, I was always anti, refugee, anti-immigration, not only in Europe or America, but for Turkey too. I always believe that, eventually this is like having all of these people in your country. Eventually, it's not going to pay off. It's going to cause you severe damages. And, the fact of the matter is, accepting refugees is a good thing. We have Ukrainian refugees in my church. I don't think it's a bad thing. But the problem is the refugees in question are fighting age males. Where are the women and children? They're nowhere to be seen, right? It's all fighting age men. And that's what we have in Turkey too. That's what people had in Europe as well. I mean, and they were the significantly majority. So, they are the ones that should be in Syria fighting. They are the ones that should be in Ukraine fighting. But in Ukraine, that's not what's happening, right? So I think a lot of Turks are getting desensitized, and, really, nationalism is a popular thing in Turkey. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Necessarily. because the foundations of the Turkish nation is based on nationalism. So that's another perspective that you might have in mind. So I think Turkish people really need, they really need Christ. I think a lot of like the moral beliefs and kind of the emphasis on Sermon of the Mount, like that stuff. I think Turkey really needs that, like for real, because people in this country are becoming really crazy, like seriously insane. And I think the Islamic clerical class is kind of very classist here. It's one of the things that I've noticed is that it's kind of classist. It's kind of there's a rift basically. So one thing that you will realize is that Turkish Muslims hate Arabic Muslims. They think Arabic Muslims are backwards Muslims, and they consider themselves the more reformed, enlightened Muslims. And there's kind of a reason to believe that because the Caliph, was in Constantinople. So the Caliphate was the Ottoman Empire was kind of the, how should I say, the political main leader of Islam for centuries, and so Turkey kind of has that inheritance pretty much. Well, that's enough. And so, oh yeah, another thing from about Yak Yak, I forgot to mention. I will recommend you checking out Father Turbo Qualis. He's on YouTube as well. He is of your own, nation, so I think you can relate to him a lot more than compared to perhaps, you know, other priests, right? Not that that really matters. I'm not saying, oh, he's gonna, but just that I understand that people want to start, when they enter into a new religion, they want to start from familiar things and integrate themselves into it, and then they can kind of like move on. It's just kind of, basic psychology, right? Like for me personally, I felt really comfortable in the church in America, not because like, in the Greek church in America, because there was kind of like similarities and the sameness in like culture and style of thinking, for example. And then over time, I got used to other jurisdictions, etc. So someone asked, "Hi, I've been reading John Cizulas and I really like the style, but is he legit?" I have not read John Cizulas. I have only heard certain things. What I have heard about him is usually not good. Apparently, he puts kind of like an unnecessary dialectic between nature and person. You can find useful things, but my personal preference is kind of just reading early church fathers. I actually have not read modern theologians, like Orthodox theologians, because kind of reason is that I kind of don't need to, because they're basically saying the same thing the early church fathers are saying. But I think I eventually will start reading more. But John Cizulas, I would recommend, my personal recommendation, if you're going to read theology, is probably going to be from Father Dimitris Daniloi. And if you get into a specific line of study, then maybe reading other scholars can be useful, right? So does Romanides have his uses, for example? Yes. Father Cizulas has his uses, yes. But I think it's like a workout, right? So if you're new to working out, you should always do compound workouts, because the point of isolation workouts is that if one part of your body is weak, you try to train it to, make it like match it up, right? But when you're new to, training, your whole body is weak. So you need to do compound exercises. So think of early church fathers as the think of kind of like the general overarching topics like general Christology, Trinitarian theology, etc. Think of them as compound workouts, because you don't know anything. So you want to kind of get general information, and then you can specify and isolate one aspect, right? So I've done that, for example. I started from just general information about, Christology, Trinitarian theology, and then I specified, okay, I'm going to be dealing with Monophysite controversy, right? So I isolated there. So that's, I think, the preferred style of learning is like that. So you want to have more general knowledge first. Brendan Yeager asks, in 2015, oh wait, I got a super chat. I forgot to read. Okay. In Seth $5. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Seth. Being Turkish, is there a barrier for Turkic Christians in Turkey? I hear that the Ecumenical Patriarchate only serves a small Greek enclave. So let me just read something to you. So I got this from a Turkic priest. Yes, there is a Turkic priest in Istanbul. If you didn't know, a Turkic priest. Oops, I made my table shake, so now we're gonna lose the light source for a second, but I'll fix that again. But I don't know if you can read this, but you can read here that this is the Divine Liturgy, Handbook of the Divine Liturgy of Saint John Chrysostom and Saint Basil the Great, and it's interlinear. So, for example, I don't know if you can read this, but this is the Turkish part, right? Now, if you had a light source like this, you could read it much better. So let's do it something like this. Yeah. So, this is the Turkish part, and then it has the Greek text next to it. So there are people that do work for, proliferation of translation of liturgical texts into Turkish. That does happen. Give me a second as I fix this, and so you can see this, but I'll keep on talking. So in terms of, if you're kind of asking, discrimination wise, like, are you being discriminated for being a Turkish Christian by Orthodox Christians? I've never faced that in Turkey so far. I've never faced that from Muslims. I've never faced that from Christians themselves. People in my church always ask me, "Oh, you're Turkish and you're Christian. Wow, that's so amazing. Like, why did you become a Christian?" Like, they want to know, like, what my story is, basically, right? Like, how I learned about Christianity and things like that. And so I just kind of give them the same answer, which is, I had a bunch of Orthodox friends, and we occasionally talked about Orthodoxy. And so over time, I became interested in Orthodox Christianity. And this does not look stable. Let me stabilize this. All right. Eventually, I learned about Orthodox Christianity online through my own research. I went to America to study, went to an Orthodox church there, became a catechumen for a year, and then became baptized. Basically, the story. So, so there is some work that it could be better, but like, this is just kind of like baby steps that we have right now. The services are the Ecumenical Patriarch only serves a small Greek enclave, not really, but at the same time, I think they could be doing more. So, I could complain about what, the situation here all day, but I think it's kind of useless. I think, people like me kind of eventually have to translate texts, write things that can be helpful to people. And I'm working on that. It's just that I'm working on a lot of things. I'm working on this channel. I'm working on reading things. I'm working on writing things. There's a lot of things on my plate. And simultaneously, I'm trying to work on my physique and my life and things like that. So all of that in combination makes things difficult. And again, got another problem. I gotta get an actual like thing, because this is kind of getting annoying. Right now, like, I'm looking at the camera, I look fried. I don't know why I look fried. I look freaking fried. I look like I came out of a solarium. I didn't. My skin tone is normal. It's just the camera is so bad. I need to get a new camera. But at the same time, another problem that I have that's going to happen in the future is, well, not a problem, but I'm going to be moving in a month. So I'm going to be moving to my home base, which means, look at this. Look at this. It looks so much better now. Which means no more streams, probably, because the internet connection in my home base is pretty bad. But that's just something that I have to live with. Anyway, so, okay. Brandon asks, Pope Francis declared Gregory of Narek a doctor of the church. That Gregory of Narek is an Armenian non-Chalcedonian. What's the implications of this for Roman Catholic ecclesiology? The implication is that, well, outside the church there is no salvation. Well, that seems to be wrong now, doesn't it? And another thing is, I mean, I talked about this extensively. I mean, Orientals also have, for example, Ethiopians venerate Saint John Damascus in their calendar. But in terms of Gregory of Narek and Roman Catholicism, well, the thing is, the Roman Catholic Church has canonized more than just Gregory of Narek. With the Uniates celebrate all saints, and this is recognized by the Roman Catholic Church. So this means that you can celebrate Orthodox saints as a Roman Catholic. But these saints willingly and openly have fought for theological beliefs that contradict Roman Catholic theology. This means that theology doesn't matter. If theology matters, then the Roman Catholic Church is wrong, so become Orthodox. If it doesn't matter, then the only thing that matters in Roman Catholicism is the Pope. And that's what most Roman Catholics believe. So for a lot of them, don't really care about it anymore. But for those who do care about theology and being consistent in your faith, this is a serious problem. This is a serious problem that needs to be addressed, right? It's not just merely because it's like you can say, oh, well, there's this and that in Orthodoxy too. There's this like one saint that you guys condemn, but now you venerate, like, you can find, like, let's say you find one. But the system in which we have in Orthodoxy is different from the Roman Catholic system. We don't have a centralized authority who decrees certain things as immutable truths, right? But when the papacy uses his power to infallibly declare someone a saint, that typically means that he's 100% a saint, right? Absolutely. So that's the problem. And David, what do you think is the Christian response to NWO? New World Order. Well, NWO was certainly a very fun group in WWE, but I don't think you're asking about the WWE NWO. I think you're asking me about a different kind of an NWO. My simple answer is just that, well, you got to fight. But how are you going to fight, right? And, when I say fight, does that mean go to the streets, arm yourself with weapons? And no, it doesn't mean that, right? That is going to get you jailed. You're going to ruin your life. Going to the streets and fighting the police and getting in trouble with the law is the exact way you don't fight these kinds of people. It's the exact way you don't do things. You gotta work within the system that you're given, because if you try to get outside the system, then you're pretty much divorcing yourself from reality. And that's why, like, the innovate solution people have, I don't really like that solution personally. I think it's cool. I think it's cool for individuals. I think it can be helpful as a solution if things go really bad. I have that solution marked right now. Like, I have many innovate locations here in Turkey. That's not a problem for me. So having that option is not a bad thing. But you want to work within the world. And how do you do that? You become part of the academia. If you're, a brainiac and you can tolerate doing that, you try to, preach basically the good news of Jesus Christ, but, in different ways, right? You can either preach it directly in your own life by living a Christian life. You can either do that by influencing the people around you, which means that you will have to know a lot of people, be friends with a lot of people, getting good terms with a lot of people that you might not like or that might not be of the same worldview, but you got to live and subsist within the system and work your way around it and survive, right? So it's really survival. And so a lot of people want to be the big bad dog and fight the NWO, but they think that they're gonna do that by, like, making boomer fed posts on Facebook. Yes, you're not gonna do any. It's only gonna make you look ridiculous. Speaking out, calling out these people is a very good thing. Doing it on YouTube, etc. That's a really good idea. But make sure that you don't waste your entire life doing that. So don't make it like for example, there's a lot of people that go out of their way to find news just to be depressed about what's happening in the world. I think that's a very sick mindset. I think that's a very, severe. It's a mindset of someone who's severely ill. I will not recommend doing that. Absolutely not at all. Because if you do that, then your whole life is going to be negativity and critique and looking at people outside of you. What you really want to do is that you want to acquire the life of the Spirit. Saint Seraphim of Sorrow says, acquire the spirit of peace and the thousands around you will be saved. That doesn't mean that you leave everyone if you're in the world. It means that you work on yourself. And so that by working on yourself, people will notice and will want to emulate you. And as St. Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. They'll want to imitate you and imitate Christ in return. And so becoming Orthodox Christian is the biggest middle finger to these people. And so that's what's important. So that's, what I'm doing here in my channel. You can guess, I guess you can consider as part of that, right? Working against these evil powers, not to be in a broad sense, what they don't want, because, a lot of these elitist groups, they're not just some individuals that have some earthly, like materialist goal. They're, the spirit, maybe individually speaking, they might have that goal, but the spirit is a demonic spirit. And so the best way to fight against demons is to side with God. It's the best way you can fight against them. So you don't defeat demons by just focusing on demons instead of living a life of God and living a divine life, right? Participating in the nature of God, living lives of saints, going to church, praying, participating in the sacraments, and things like that. That's how you basically defeat these people. And it's going to be about general principles and things like that. So it's not going to be like specific, do this and you're going to be better. It's about, the general idea and trajectory of where you want to take your life to. Isn't his Discord? No, my Discord is called Precept Gang, and it's in the link in the description below. Oh yeah. All right, I got some. Man, a lot of people are very supportive today. I got a lot of super chats. Venom Snake with the 2, I believe, CHF. Let me look that up. CHF. I believe that's Swiss franc, but that is Swiss franc. Oh my gosh, I'm going super mode. That is. Thank you for the 2 Swiss francs. Aster with the $3. Thank you for the $3. Appreciate your support, my financiers. And they didn't really ask any questions. Just Venom Snake says, keep it up. Appreciate the dollar. And yeah, like for example, to get back to the Turkey stuff, like in certain places like Kadıköy, which is Kalkedon, right? Kalkedon is like one of the most liberal places in Turkey right now, which is a shame because I like that place. I really like it, but the people in it aren't cool. My boomer dad is a Turkish nationalist and isn't even Turkish, lol. Young Princess says, I started out reading Fathers Closer to Me in time. I guess that can be useful. I suppose that can be useful. To easier understand. But if you don't have that problem, then like for me personally, one of my first major theological works was God is True Dialectic, Volume 1, amazing work. That made a lot of things very easy to understand. Having said that, big boy Derek, big man Derek with the $10, got that cool sunglasses emoji, doing that pose with the sunglasses. Do I have my sunglasses? I don't have sunglasses, but I got the nerd glasses. I appreciate you, fella, for the $10 donation. Yeehaw, let's go. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. And is David taking questions right now? Yes, I am. And I'm going to be taking questions in the nerd glasses. DJ asks, if I decided to join the church, does it matter which parish I join? There are several around me, Greek, Coptic, Ukrainian, Russian. So I kind of answered this question before, but so the first thing I will say is that do not join the Oriental Orthodox Church. They are the Coptic Church, Ethiopian Church, Syriac Church. You see a Syriac Church, A church that calls themselves Syriac Orthodox, a church that calls like Oriental Orthodox, church that calls it Ethiopian Orthodox, or Coptic Orthodox don't join that. Those are Oriental Orthodox. They don't accept the seven ecumenical councils. They don't believe Christ is in two natures. Rather, they believe he's one nature. Kind of already gave you the answer to that question briefly. In terms of the canonical Orthodox churches, whether it's Greek, Russian, any canonical Orthodox parish is good. So if it's in a list of the canonical Orthodox parishes, I will give to you in the live chat the link to it. So supposing that you live in the United States, Mr. DJ, give me the beat. I will recommend you check this out. Any church that refers to itself as a Greek Orthodox Church or Russian Orthodox, Rokor or Antiochian Orthodox Church, any church that is part of the canonical Orthodox Church, I will recommend you go. Right? The jurisdiction, in my opinion, doesn't matter. What matters is the parish. If you have a good parish nearby you, if there's a Greek church and a Russian church, and the Greek church has a good parish, a good community, and a priest that engages you, and the Russian church maybe needs some work, go to the Greek church, right? I was baptized in the Greek church, and I know someone in Turkey that was baptized in a Moscow church, and he took communion in a Greek church, for example. So that's just it's not a big deal, right? The jurisdictions are just administrative differences. Being baptized or going to one of them, it's the same Orthodox faith, right? But Coptic, Syriac, they are not the same faith. They're a completely different church. Is it mandatory to have a blind faith in Putin, Jinping? I feel like this is a meme question. Like you can't. This is like a kind of like an insulting. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It sounds like a really strange question. Do you have? Obviously, you don't. In E-Orthodox, like what the heck is even E-Orthodox? E-Orthodox isn't real. It's like, who cares about E-Orthodox life? Who cares about online Orthodox nonsense? I mean, like we're not here being your spiritual. That's like if I support Putin, for example, you don't have to, right? Like you don't have to. But if I, for example, say, hey, this is what the saints say about something, and they clearly do say that and believe that, that's a different topic. You obviously, I think you have to believe that, not because I'm saying it, it's because it's the church speaking. I'm not, the church is not speaking through me or anything like that. I'm just demonstrating this is what the church says, right? That's what I'm saying. So obviously that's what's important. But like worldly leaders, I have to defend this world leader or that world leader. It's not a big deal. You don't have to do that. Eduardo with the $5. Oh my gosh. Oh, you guys are going big mode. I mean, with the $5, thank you, Eduardo. Appreciate the support, financial support. Thank you. This is probably the best stream in that regard I had so far. It's pretty good to know. I'm happy to see that like my efforts kind of it's vain. I understand that. It's not money. As I said, I don't need money. I don't have financial difficulties. Maybe I will have in the future. Who knows? But currently I don't. But I am glad that the kind of work I put every single day is getting some kind of recognition. Makes anyone happy when they do that. As someone asks, favorite book in the Holy Bible? That's a tough one. I mean, I don't even want to say there's this favorite book, but what's a scriptural book that I don't really have any, to be honest. I think the entire Bible is kind of just good, but like in terms of what I've read the most, I read Genesis the most. Out of the synoptic gospels, I like John the most. John is the most, for me, it's the most engaging gospel. It's the gospel that speaks to me more. But obviously the other gospels are also good in their own right as well, right? So like that's how I can answer that question. But I don't like I don't know. It feels weird answering that question about the Bible, as if like I don't know. It's just me though. Like I'm not trying to be like a dick towards Max. I'm just like for me, it's my own problem. It makes me feel strange, right? It's like, what's your favorite football game? It's like, well, I can talk about that, right? Were you a Christian your whole life? No, I converted to Christianity in 2008. And hopefully this phone doesn't fall off. Okay. I converted to Christianity in 2008. Really, I began my conversion in the summer of 2007. But in 2018 is when I became an inquirer and a catechumen. And since then, I've been Christian. Since January 6, 2019, I'm an Orthodox Christian that is baptized. What does the real Medvite mean? Don't worry about it. It's an inside joke from the time when I used to be in like far right Discord servers in 2015. There was a meme, a Medvite meme. I think it was like some Assyrian guy was like desperately arguing that he is a white person. Which is like, you don't have like it's so pathetic because like you don't have to like argue that, like you're Assyrian, be Assyrian, you don't need to. You'd be like, I'm white, guys, trust me, I'm white, I am white. Like you don't have to do that. But anyways, he was like, oh, like I'm white, I'm like med white, like I'm like white, like Mediterranean white, and like it became a meme after that, and like ever since then I changed my name to the real med white because it was like, oh, Trump's Twitter @ is the real Donald Trump. Turns out it's actually real Donald Trump. It's not the real Donald Trump, but I found it out a bit too late, right? So that's where the origin of the Medvite comes from. It's not a spectacular. When I say a far right, it's not even a far right Discord. It's a political debate Discord that this happened. It's just that there are a lot of people who are far right there. There are a lot of people that were also far left there. Not a lot, but some. Oh, James, your parish is in. Oh, you're in Arizona. I was in Arizona. I became Orthodox in Arizona. You're Tempe, Arizona. Wait, OC in Tempe. Wait. I know there's a Serbian church in Tempe, but OCA church. I don't remember there being one. I know there's an Antiochian around there, but that's what I remember. Oh, Derek with another $10 says, "Hey, hold up." Yeah, Arizona is like Orthodox in Arizona is great. I definitely think because it has the monastery there, Saint Anthony's Monastery. It's very good. I was originally Roman Catholic, and etc., etc. Okay. Hey, hold up. Hey. All right. DJ asks, do you think a reunification of Catholic and Orthodox churches is possible? I have a video specifically dedicated to that question, but the short answer is I think no, and I think it's kind of a useless discussion. And the reason why I think it's useless discussion is because my main reason is, let's say hypothetically speaking, the Roman Catholics decide to become Orthodox. Well, what will it take for them to be that, right? Well, it will take them rejecting the post-schism saints, pretty much rejecting the entire church's identity post-schism. So basically, they will have to deny being the Roman Catholic Church. So the only way reunification can happen between the two churches is if one of the churches, erases itself. Because the thing is, for example, there can be a reunification between old ritualists and, the canonical church, right? We have canonical old rite parishes. Because the difference between the two is not a dogmatic difference or anything like that. The difference between the two is mainly of, how should we serve liturgy? It's over that, right? And it's over minor issues that can be, tolerated and respected. But the differences between us and the Roman Catholics, they're not minor. There are severe theological differences that are, that rejecting them from either side, rejecting them just means rejecting your own church. So for the Roman Catholics to become Orthodox, they'll just have to become Orthodox. I think that's just kind of it. It's not going to be this, meet me halfway. If there's a meet me halfway, then both will deny themselves, right? But we need to also understand that, with Roman Catholics, for example, their rules regarding celibate clergy. I know a lot of people don't like celibate clergy. That's totally fine. Like, them having celibate clergy is totally fine. That's not a reason for us to be against Roman Catholicism. Now, their rejection of married clergy will be, but now with the uniates, they don't even really hold to that anymore, right? So those are kind of like the minor things that you can like tolerate, because that's dependent on the differences in administration. But what was the video? I think I'm gonna try to. But yeah, so all right, this video. So let's see. Here we go. All right, I'll link this to you. I think this DJ asked this, right? Yeah, DJ. All right. I'll link the video and then I'll name the video on there. So that's my perspective. I think it's not gonna happen. I think it's an empty discussion. I think we had that chance in Florence, and the Roman Catholic Church took a certain direction, and it, became a point of no return. Until then, things were still possible. After that, Roman Catholic tactic went from let's unify with Orthodox to let's take away Orthodox parishes. That's what the general tactic became. Let me make sure. The phone is shaking. Oh my gosh. Okay. Are there cracks on my phone? Whatever. The phone is pretty holding up good. It's an Android. It can survive. But nevertheless, give me a second. Just gotta fix the positioning. Yeah, it's nearly falling. I really need to. Maybe I should tape like a light source. Maybe I should just have a light source, or maybe I should just get a better camera. But then I don't have any USB. I don't have any USB places to do that. Anyways, can you make a video on the reasons why Trinity? As if I haven't done that already. I have done that. Like, sir, I have done that. It's literally called Trinitarianism is the superior form of monotheism. Like, I don't know. Again, this is a problem I have. It's just that I don't know why. Like, this is just me being honest. This isn't me railing on anyone. Like, I'm not mad at that question. Like, at the person asking that question. It's just like, to me, I'm like, dude, I already made a video about that. How are you like, like, just scroll through my channel a little bit. You could like, it's like there's like a part of me that says that, but like I understand that like it's unfair, because it's unfair to expect anyone to like scroll through 200 freaking videos of my freaking channel. No one's gonna do that, right? I don't do that for anyone, so why will anyone do that to me, right? It's just that, like, for me, again, it's like, it's one of the things that you have to live with when you're making videos. But Omari Oter, I have got the video for you. I'll put the link, and I'm pinging you in live chat. There you go. So yes, I have already done a stream specifically on that topic, why Trinitarianism is superior monotheism. You can go watch it there. So you also go to ASU, yep. Uh, and let's see, people are talking about. Okay, seems like there's no. Will EP enter communion with Rome in 2025? Oh, yeah, the Nicea 2025 rumors. The funny thing about Nicea 2025 rumors is, uh, oh, good, wonderful. Just another funny little problem that's gonna, uh, okay. Let's see. Anyways, um, wait, these people are. Just some Discord politics again, as usual, because some people live their lives online and they just think that everything they do, they don't have lives, they don't have any lives, they're just gonna do some stupid, silly little things and just, you know, be stupid wastes of time. Love dealing with online things. Anyways, uh, so much better. So much better than, you know, trying to cause problems online is like so much better than actually meeting people in real life and talking to them. So much better, right? People are insane. I was gonna say the 2025 rumor. So apparently, there's a rumor that in 2025 in Nicæa there's going to be a council between Roman Catholic Church and Orthodox Church. The funny thing is, I go there I go there bi-weekly for like the last 2 months. So I've been there like 3-4 times in the last 2 months. So that's the funny part to me, is that like I go there with my my relatives and friends and just like chill out there. And so like there's gonna be like the thing about the here's the thing with the reunification council thing, is that like if that's really gonna happen, do they not realize that Nicea is actually a really small city? Like it's not a big city. Okay, it's a really small place. I can walk the entire city in a single day. In fact, I've done that. I've walked the entire city in a single day. It's a really small place today. Um, so like where are they gonna stay? Like that place cannot like house like 600 new people and like the other tons of people that come after that. I don't know. Maybe they're like hotels, but they're like really small hotels. Um, so that's like, to me, that's like the funny part about the Nicea 2025 thing, is that like what the heck? Like seriously? Um, but I don't know. I don't think that's. I think it's just a rumor. I don't think it's real. But if it does happen, bro, I'm gonna tell you, 2025. I'm in Nicea, guaranteed. I'm waiting for you there, right? We're gonna hang out. We're gonna like have like a group of 100 people, and we're gonna be like, Papa hereticos, just like shouting at the like that Orthodox priest who shouted Papa hereticos. Just gather like a bunch of people and just like do freaking, like you know how like in like football, like they have like their anthems and chants, like they sing like la la la la la la la la la. Like we're gonna do the same thing. It's like just like singing songs against, like, oh, that would be fun. I'd love that. That would be insanely fun. And I don't think the police will like really stop us, to be honest. Um, I think it would be really funny. Just have like a just like, I don't know, just like be like disrupting if they're trying to do like something evil or anything like that. If it's like some like merely diplomatic thing, even then it's like, like we're there to have a good time, because I think that like nothing really serious is gonna come out of it, in my opinion. Uh, the Frenchman wrote a book about the saints of Mount Olympus in Uluda. Hmm, maybe, I don't know. What book is that? Name me the book. I want to look into it. Um, but seems like the okay. All right, Chris asks, who is Saint Mary? Who is the Mother of God? Okay. The thing is, like, I'm not even making fun of like the improper English thing. It's just that like it makes me ask, like, if I explain to you, like, will you understand what I say? Because it seems like you might have some difficulties, but me saying that is the funniest part. My English is difficult. Anyways, but who is Mary and who is the Mother of God? Mary is the mother of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is God, therefore Mary is the mother of God. Mary is not the mother of Christ's divinity. He is the mother of the person of Christ, and she gave birth to her. She gave birth to him. She gave birth to his humanity. Okay, that's what I try to say. I can't believe I freaking messed up the pronouns. I need pronoun studies. I need an expert in gender studies to teach me that stuff now. But no, seriously though, Mary is the mother of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is God, therefore Mary is the mother of God. She was typified in the Old Testament in the burning bush, in the Ark of the Covenant, because the Ark, bore the church in her. And so, since she gave birth to God the Word, and she is, Christ's mother, there is a very important kind of, you can say, relationship between the two. I mean, family is really important. But what's also important is that God, the Word, in his humanity was in the womb of the Virgin Mary. And so his divine presence sanctified the Virgin Mary, and she lived, as a result, a sanctified life. The birth really did sanctify her. Right? I mean, we talk all about how we should have God's presence in us, etc. She literally had God's presence, materially speaking, in her womb. I mean, that's, that's one of the funny things that people don't kind of get, is that, that's a really, really big deal. I mean, you think that God is going to be born in the Virgin Mary and, in his humanity, and the Virgin Mary is going to be just a total normal sinner. Like it's a real transformation to her as well. And so she is considered to be higher than the cherubim and the seraphim for that reason, right? And this is why she is the most important saint of all. And that's why we ask for her petitions, because just like in the wedding at Cana, she petitioned to her son, and her son made a miracle at Cana, which he originally didn't even want to do, didn't even plan on making that miracle. But the first miracle was done there, right? Because of her petitions. And that mode of the relationship still exists in heaven, where we ask the Virgin Mary to intercede for us, so that she intercedes for us, makes petitions to her son, right? And we also know that petitions do work and they do matter, right? The prophets, Moses, Abraham, they petitioned to God to have mercy on Israel, to have mercy on their people, and God has mercy on them because of those petitions. So if that happens for them, how more important it is for the Word of God, for Jesus Christ to listen to his mother, right? That relationship still exists, at the very least in some form, in heaven, right? So they're not as if they're like totally divorced from each other. So we need to kind of understand that, yes, they have an angelic life, etc., but they're not totally divorced from their historical relations. I mean, historical origin and relation is part of our personal identity, right? And so that's part of Christ's personal identity in his humanity. And that's why it's important. The book is in complete French. Oh, that's a bit tough. Are there any good videos or books to interact with friends who are heterodox or schismatics? Ask your priest. Your priest will be the best guide on that. What my priest told me is that, you need to understand what's the difference between someone that's just not like Orthodox, and like the difference between someone who rejects Orthodoxy, right? So, for example, the decrees about, not praying with heretics, etc., you need to understand that extends to, groups like Marcionites, people that deny, like, deny Christ. Like, for example, I don't do Islamic prayer with my Muslim relatives when we're eating. I do my own, right? If they want to be a part of that, to me, for example, I will not say that's bad, right? Necessarily, right? It's kind of, it will be bad for them on their own perspective. But for me, it's like I'm just doing my prayers just out loud. And if they want to listen to it, then that's their prerogative. But, uh, so there's a lot of nuance into it. And usually canons don't get into that nuance because that nuance is usually educated and known through the context of the history of that time. And we don't have that history because we didn't live that history, so we don't know. The way we can know is talking to our priests, asking them, hey, what about this scenario? What about this situation? What should I do at this time? Etc., etc., etc. That's really how you know what to do. So me personally, in my own personal life, unless someone really asks me to like publicly pray like my own prayers, like ask me about it, I don't say anything. I just do what I normally do, and that's it. But like in terms of like if they want to do like this, like like if you're in like a meal with a bunch of your like friends and they're like Protestants, like, oh Christ God bless this meal, I think like being present there is like you're not committing an evil, but I think I will recommend you still do your own prayers, within your heart, right? If it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? But again, I will recommend you talking to your priest about this because your priest is ultimately your spiritual guide, not me. I'm not your spiritual guide. And there are priests online that can answer this question too. Like Father John Whiteford, I suppose. Do you know any Orthodox, person of color, or Middle East Christian philosophers? Oh, Mr. Dre. Mr. Dre, you're asking the question to the man, okay? First of all, me, I'm Turkish. I don't think I will be considered to be a white person by most American standards. I don't know. I mean, I do look the part, but I'm gonna tell you this: 3 months later, in summer, you're gonna see my visage. You're gonna see, wow, this doesn't look white because I'm gonna be tan because I'm gonna be out in the summer, surfing, feeling the Caribbean rhythms. I'm just joking, but okay. Saint John Damascus is a Syrian. He's Syrian. Saint Athanasius is Egyptian. Saint Moses the Black is Ethiopian. Saint Cyprian of Carthage, he's North African. Saint Augustine is North African, although I think he's white. I believe. I think he's Latin, right? There's numerous. I mean, there's numerous Egyptian saints. There's numerous even Ethiopian saints pre-schism that you can look at. There's various Syrian saints. Antiochian saints. North African saints. I mean, heck, like let me like hold up. Perhaps I can even find one in the Synaxarion today. I don't think I have the online Synaxarion here. Okay, let's look at the OCA page for today. John the New of Sochi, who suffered at Belgrade, in the city of Trebizond. Oh, my man. Should probably read. Okay, not today, but like you get the point. There's a lot of persons of color. I hate that term, but there's a lot of non-European people in our faith that do theology. Again, St. John Damascus is one of the most significant ones. But to be honest, I guess like it does refute that Christianity is not a like the idea of like the Christianity is a white man's religion. It's like, really? Like seriously? Like you actually believe that? Like, have you actually read history? Like, these people are so stupid and so utterly ridiculous. But another point is that I don't see how that even matters. Like, does that mean it's not true? That like, oh, a lot of Christian theologians are white people. Okay. A lot of Islamic theologians are Arabic people. No one calls it like an Arab. Like I guess a lot of people do, right? But like you usually don't hear them say that. No one says, "Oh, Judaism is like like an ethnic religion." Like you don't see them like complain about it. It's only about Christianity they complain about it. Well, Buddhism, Hinduism, it's an Indian thing. It's a Chinese. It's a Chinese thing. It's a Japanese thing. No one does that, right? Now people are trying to. Oh, actually, it's an Indo-European thing. It's like, okay, let's be more serious now. Like the ethnic origins of the people who are of a religious group literally doesn't matter. Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't really matter of the truthfulness of the religion, the falsehood of it. Doesn't matter, right? There can be one ethnic group left worshiping a certain religion, it can still be true, right? But if it is for all men, that's what makes it a universal faith, right? What do I think about the Church of England? It will be destroyed and the Orthodox Church will replace it. Orthodox shouldn't pray with the heterodox unless you're leading the prayer. Yeah, again, as I said, it's a lot more complicated than like the kind of like the bare letters and like understanding of it, from my perspective at the very least. My view on the Macedonian Church being granted independence, good or bad, I haven't done research on it, so I don't know much, but I guess it's cool that the situation has been resolved. That's all I can say. I'm happy that we have Macedonian brothers come to the faith, to the canonical church. That's obviously a good thing. So that's all I can say about it. Speaking of David, do you know Ottoman Turkish? No, I tried speaking it for a MUN conference. I had to get a lecture from it from a bunch of like Muslim girls, like a 15-minute lecture on it, and it's different. Why do the Latins not call Saint Prophet Moses a saint? Why do they call OT saints? I mean, certainly they believe the Old Testament prophets are saints, but I guess the name of them is just prophet, right? So their sainthood is kind of implied in that term. That's what I will guess. Most Americans, it's the call to prayer for the mosques, I think. Yeah. Most Americans are silly about what they think white is. They usually say European, but they give different answers. Yeah, because it's just arbitrary, just a silly arbitrary thing. Do you know any Filipino saints? No, I don't. There are no Filipino Orthodox until very recently. Yes, that is the case. Ottoman Turkish is pretty difficult, to be honest. From the last time I checked, maybe it was Arabic, and I am deluding myself into thinking it's Ottoman Turkish. Osman, but like first of all, Ottoman Turkish is written in Arabic. So that's the difficult part about it. Oh, actually, no, never mind. Ottoman Turkish is readable. So I was probably confusing it with Arabic. No, Ottoman Turkish is understandable. Somewhat. But it is still pretty difficult. Like yeah, for example, in fact, Old Turkish, Göktürkçe, is more understandable than Ottoman Turkish. Like boz bulut yürüdü, boyların üzerine yağdı, kara bulut yürüdü, her şeyin üzerine yağdı. Boz bulut neydi ya? Boz renkti ya. Gray, okay. The gray skies walked and it rained on the boyların. Boylar on the boylar. The dark skies walked. It's rained on everything. And then the Ottoman Turkish of it is, I don't know if it's the Ottoman Turkish, to be honest. Oh, that's no. The original Göktürk version is Boz bulit yurudi, boyun üze yagdi, kara bulit yurudi, kamık üze yagdi. And then the Ottoman Turkish version is Amidi medid ve ahdı bayidir ki danışgahis istifade nihadi zayn. Yeah, like what the heck bu yani anasını satayım. Is the difference, right? Some of the terms are very different. So in like some Ottoman Turkish like things are translated in modern Turkish. I remember this happening in our Turkish literature lessons. So yeah, but yeah, like the Ottoman Turkish is an Arabic script that I do remember. I probably said something really wrong and I probably look really stupid, but it's like whatever. It doesn't matter too much. It's been a long time since I've been in high school. If you asked me this 5 years ago, I would probably answer you this question really easily. All right, let's see the chat. What is the general process for catechumens joining the church? So the general process is that you go to an Orthodox church, you walk to a priest, you say, "Hello, I want to be Orthodox. Can I join the catechumenate?" And your priest will say, "Okay, we have catechumenate classes XYZ days," or they're going to say, "Read this, this, this, and this book, and we will evaluate after that." Or, let's go to this class here, etc., etc. Or just say, come to liturgy for a year. If you're still around, we'll baptize you. It depends from parish to parish. My church was allowed it to do it early, but eventually it lasted for a year. My catechumenate, that is. And yeah, that's how the process usually goes. The traditional process is between a year and 3. But due to the current circumstances, usually it is less than a year, which I think it should be a year. I think catechumen should last a year, generally speaking. 3 years is, I think, a bit too much, in my personal opinion. At the same time, I will personally recommend that you want to keep your catechumenate longer. Like, having a short catechumenate does not help you. Trust me. There's a lot of things that you really need to know. You're going to say, "Oh, well, one temptation is, well, these credos know less than I do." Okay, who cares? You still need to learn these things. They didn't do their job, so what? That doesn't mean that you can be lax on yours. So you got to learn, you got to be competent. And that means you need to know the basic dogmas. When I say basic dogmas, that includes Trinitarian theology, Christology. You know what that includes? That includes, for example, you need to know the essence energies distinction quite well, somewhat. You have to have a good idea about it. You have to have a good idea about Christology and the terms we use for Christology. You have to have a good idea about the Trinity and why the Trinity is one God, and the faculties of the divine nature, etc., etc., the properties of divine nature. You have to know these things. You have to. That's the least you can do in your catechumenate. So all of these things that I'm telling you is very important. So then it gets to the second question: books for catechumens to read. Now, my personal recommendation, number one, is listen to your priest and what he tells you. But if you want a general kind of like an overview, like something like that just like goes over Christianity, to be honest, I don't know any because I haven't read a book like that. But there are a couple of people that do suggest books like that. Like a book that's like the Orthodox way from Metropolitan Ver. I will not recommend that book, for example, because it does contain some errors. The later editions, for example, one of the errors it makes is Metropolitan Ver argues Christ's human nature was a fallen nature, which means that it had original sin. I'm sorry, Metropolitan Ver, that's not true. That's totally untrue. That contradicts what St. Maximus the Confessor says. That really contradicts Chalcedon, because what does Chalcedon say? Chalcedon says Christ is consubstantial with us in all except for sin. So I will recommend if you Clark-Clarkton. That's what I hear being recommended. Jay recommends Clark-Clarkton. So there are 2 books. One is for those who come from a Protestant background, and the other is for people who come from a Roman Catholic background. So the one that people, the way, what every Protestant should know about the Orthodox Church. If you come from a Protestant background, you should read that book, right? Clark-Clarkton has a book called The Faith and Orthodox Catechism. So that's I think you should look at that. From what I heard about him, he's quite good. Apparently, he's not he knows what he's talking about. So if you look at it on Amazon, right, there's another one, Truth: What Every Roman Catholic Should Know About the Orthodox Church, right? So he has books that are specifically for people who come from a specific background, right? And then a general catechism book. After that, let's say you read the general catechism books. Then you want to read patristic catechetical books. St. Cyril of Jerusalem's Catechetical Lectures. St. Gregory of Nyssa's Great Catechism. St. John Damascus's Exposition of the Orthodox Faith. St. Athanasius the Great's On the Incarnation. And these basic books, and then I will add on an academic book on top of that as something that you can start by. I think, and I 100% do recommend this book. It's a great book, an excellent work, even though the author right now, passed him into the weird direction, although it seems like he is somewhat Orthodox today, though his current work is like, schizophrenic, and this is me being nice, is Dr. Joseph Farrell's God, History, Dialectic, Volume 1 specifically. Volume 2 and 3 and 4, you can get them if you want, but Volume 1 specifically is very important. Volume 4 is just the sources. Volume 1 of God, History, Dialectic is amazing. I think if you want to take Orthodox theology seriously, you have to read that book. I know there's a lot of people that are going to really hate me for saying that because, he left the church. Why did you do that? Well, Tertullian left the church too, but many people recommend reading Tertullian, right? Because you can learn a lot from Tertullian. That's a genetic fallacy, right? Just because you don't like the author doesn't mean what he has written is trash. And his book is indeed very helpful. It goes over the history of the first millennia of Orthodox Christianity, the theology of it, the theological discussions. He cites various different sources. The guy's clearly knowledgeable. He knows what he's talking about. I'll recommend that book. And RoboChief, $5. Thank you for the $5. Tells me to keep it up with a nice pair emoji. And then Rachel Wilson, $10. Thank you, Rachel. She says, your impression of sassy American... I can't do it right now. Oh my gosh. My impression of the sassy American woman is totally my favorite thing on the internet. Spot on. Was that good enough? I feel horrible doing that. Now that someone's gonna freaking click that and be like, "Oh, David is fruity. David is fruity tooty, dude. He's a fruity tooty." I don't know. It's just that I guess something. I guess we all have a comedian inside of us. All I know is that all I'm a Turkish Ankara is angry. That sounds so funny. Angry'e gideceğim ya. Yak ya Angry'e gitmeyeceğim. İzniye gideceğim. Ana. Kardeş nereye gidiyordun da? My priest required us to go through one liturgical calendar year and complete 2 courses. Orthodox 101 courses. Oh, no, I don't know about that. Like, I haven't done that. That sounds fun. Speaking of, someone asked me, what do I think about the Western Rite parishes? My nose is itchy. Well, before I tell you about my thoughts about them, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get some water because I'm freaking thirsty. Okay, so I'll see you guys in a minute. Give me a second. Oh yo. Oops. I hope I didn't click anything wrong on my keyboard. God. No, this is not Mr. Water. Mr. Water is dead. We don't use that joke anymore. Rest in peace, Mr. Water. We had a huge major fight with him. The guy's totally insane. Anyways, oh my gosh, David, why'd you make me wait for a minute? You're making me mad. Uh, it's funny because like the last time I went to Nicæa, I was hanging out with my cousin and a friend of his who came with us, and he will like make like random like outbursts, like talk like, oh my god, like just like it was so funny, just like talking with that guy sometimes. But what do I think about the Western Rite? Can I refuse to comment because I don't want to comment because it's such a minor issue that I not even an issue. It's such a minor thing. I kind of don't really even care about it. But like when I give my honest thoughts, there's always like a group of like psychopathic Western Rite enthusiasts who like go insane and bonkers. And like you know me, like I like to like fire people up, but like it's just not worth it. Like I can be honest, but like then people are gonna get mad about it. So like all I'm gonna say is Saint John Maximovich thought it was a good idea, but Saint John you know the if there's a letter from Saint John Maximovich. In fact, let me show you this letter. Why not? Uh, let me, whose Twitter account was it? Let me oh, it was Quas. Okay. So was it this one? Let me find a letter. The first thing I will say is that I don't think Western Rite is necessary to have. That's one thing I want to say. I know the sentiment of never let anyone tell you that you need to be Western in order to be Orthodox, and like that's a popular quote by Saint John Maximovich. You can be Eastern Rite and still be Western Orthodox, right? Like let me give you an example. Do you see the lack of beard, for example? That's part of the culture that I live here in Turkey. I don't have to grow a full beard in order to live a Orthodox life, right? So that's an example. You can be in an Eastern Rite parish and still do that, right? I know there's going to be some priests that's going to be like maybe they might not be happy in like few Greek parishes, but in most parishes they'd be like, yeah, you live in the West, so you know what was the term about Rome? Like, do as the Romans do, right? That applies even if you're Eastern Rite, to be honest. But to another point that I want to get to is um, well, I can't find it. There's a letter from Saint John Maximovich where he criticizes one of the Western Rite bishops in France, and he was the last Western Rite or cannot like he went out of the canonical church after the death of Saint John Maximovich, and like there are no canonical Western Rite parishes in France anymore. They don't have them anymore. They don't use them anymore. The only ones are like the schismatic ones. That's what I was trying to point out. But I think the intention is good. I think the idea is good. But the thing is, I think you just need to do things organic, right? There's nothing about the Byzantine liturgy that's gonna like throw you outside of Western piety. I understand that yes, there are certain pre-schism Western practices and things that were done that are not done the Byzantine liturgy, but you also really like you don't need to have those things either. I know that for a lot of people that's gonna sound really heartless and cold, but like you can have them. But what I usually see is that it then moves to, oh well, let's also have this, let's also have that. Let's also have this devotion. Let's also have that devotion. Let's have these different practices that contradicts the Orthodox faith and wasn't revealed in the Orthodox Church. You know, it just goes into that. And to me, it's just like, if you're going to act like that, I don't think you're ready to have a Western Rite parish. I think you need to chill out in an Eastern Rite parish. And like, would you, for example, be Orthodox if you only had a Byzantine Rite church? I mean, it's like beggars can't be choosers, right? And, you know, the Byzantine liturgy, has a lot of grounding, but we also need to understand and know, and again, this is going to be unpopular statements, but I think people need to hear this. The truth is that a lot of the good Western practices, like the rule of Saint Benedict, Western monasticism, I will recommend you read Father Seraphim Rose's Vita Patrum, which is it's the book on the lives of saints by Saint Gregory of Tours. Because what you're going to realize is that Father Seraphim Rose makes the case that a lot of really good Western ascetic practices. Let me ask you this question: where do you think it comes from? It doesn't come from the West, I can tell you that. Does it come from further West, like from America? No. Does it come from the Far East, like Japan? No. You know where it comes from? It comes from Egypt, which is the same source, Byzantine, asceticism, etc. It also takes from Egypt, right? It comes from Egypt. It comes from Constantinople. It comes from the Byzantine East. That's what the pre-schism, Western asceticism, the good aspects of it, it comes from. So you don't recover it by trying to reconstruct a Western rite. You don't accomplish that. You accomplish that by going to the source material that actually does exist, right? Having said that, I think there are still, I will say, a majority of Western Rite parishes are still good. I think you can still go to a Western Rite parish as a canonical Orthodox Christian and still be on the same standing as an Eastern Orthodox Christian because it's canonically accepted by the church. The Eucharist is still the same Eucharist. The faith is still the same faith. There are individual parishes that do commit abuses, but they don't reflect the entire rite on its own. Whereas in the Roman Catholic Church, the uniates actually do reflect on the Roman Catholic Church because the Roman Catholic Church officially recognizes them, whereas the Orthodox Church doesn't officially recognize the abuse of certain groups where they have like these, Western post-schism heretical prayers like devotions, like the Sacred Heart and things like that. They don't, individual churches, there are some of them that do that. Most of them, to my knowledge, especially the ROCOR ones, don't do that, right? But a lot of it is exaggerated by a lot of supreme pro Western Rite people, I suppose. But let me see where. Yeah, I found it. It's so Saint John of San Francisco, on the first and only French Western Rite bishop, he says, "You devoted yourself to this work with all your strength. You rushed without looking back, as happens in such cases, and you made a lot of mistakes." And this is to the French Western Rite bishop, Jean Nectaire, I believe. And then he went to schism after St. John Maximo Tripost. So in France, they don't use the Western Rite for that reason. It didn't work there. In America, maybe it does. Who knows? I mean, I hope it does, right? I'm not praying to God for it to fail. But I just think that my own personal, what I think personally, you want Western kind of devotions in the Orthodox Church, let's say in Norway, just have the Eastern Rite liturgy for a couple of years, and over time, there will be certain practices that will naturally develop over time, right? That's really how rites end up being. I mean, look at Russia. I mean, Russia uses the Byzantine Rite, and yet isn't it in many ways distinct from the way Greeks do things? Yes, it is, right? There are many these minor differences that kind of give, add more life to it. Not to say that it's better, it's just that it's, it has its own character. That can still develop in a different country, right? So that's the main thing I think people aren't getting. And we also need to understand that St. John Chrysostom's Divine Liturgy, according to the book I just showed you, is a derivative of St. Basil the Great's liturgy, which is a derivative of St. James's liturgy, right? The liturgy of St. James from St. James himself, right? Maybe someone can correct me on that. So we need to understand that's still apostolic liturgy. I'm not saying Western Rite is still apostolic liturgy, but for example, in my Greek Orthodox Church in when I was in Arizona, we celebrated the liturgy of Saint Gregory the Great. I remember we did do something like that. I believe it was Saint Gregory the Great, right? So That's kind of my take. Again, there's going to be a lot of misconstructions. A lot of people are going to take their own interpretations, etc. Like, to me personally, it's like whatever. You don't even have to listen to me. I just, this is just my take on it. If you have a Western Rite parish and like no other Orthodox parish around you, which doesn't happen, but let's say there is, go to the Western Rite parish. Not a big deal, right? It's still an Orthodox church. It's not deficient or anything like that. I know I won't go that far, but we need to understand that really the good things about the Orthodox faith comes from the East. Like, you kind of have to say that, in my opinion. Look at Saint Hilary of Poitiers and Saint Ambrose, Saint Irenee of Lyons. They're all Eastern. Saint John Cassian, Eastern, right? All of these saints are Eastern. Saint Benedict, he gets it from Saint John Cassian. Saint John Cassian is the one that introduces Eastern monasticism to the West in its form, right? He has many different ways. He has the conferences and institutions, right? So those are the two monastic works that was very influential in Western monasticism. That, by the way, isn't really used that much today. Isn't that interesting? Why is that the case, right? And Father Seraphim Rose notes this in Vita Patrum. Many pre-schism Western things are abandoned in the post-schism West. They've been abandoned, but they've been preserved in the Eastern liturgy. And so what the Orthodox are doing are recovering those things, right? But we can recover that in the Byzantine Rite, in my opinion. So I appreciate the advice. I'll become a catechumen. God be with you, my friend. So 1 year period to become a catechumen? That sounds strange to me. So he's telling you that you need to be inquired, then you'll be a catechumen? Maybe that's just, again, different. Every parish has their own way of doing things. Maybe that priest is kind of just saying, is this guy going to come to church for only 2 weeks and then leave, or is he actually going to come for like a prolonged amount of time, right? That's what they kind of want to see, because conversion to Orthodox is just, I became Orthodox. I go to church like 2 months and then you don't go anymore, right? That's not, that's not conversion. That isn't really how it works. But for a lot of religions, that's really how it works, right? Oh yeah. Oh, man-made horrors beyond comprehension. It's not my opinion. It's on my what? Oh my gosh! You gotta do good work. Like anyone, here's a key term to understand. Anyone that uses like old terms like Adonai, Yahweh, Elohim, they're 100% schizophrenic. Okay, and don't waste your time with them, because a lot of people like that. I don't know why. Like, they're not even bad terms to use. It's just that they have very strange autistic fixations on things. Like, I'm speaking from my personal experience. They're a waste of time. They don't listen. They never listen. They push their opinions, and they push their opinions on your throat, and they don't listen to you, right? They only like to listen to the sound of their own voice. And the best way to deal with them is to shut their mouth off and say, go away and stop wasting my time. If you want to listen, come back, okay? Because it's nonsensical, right? So there's no church that's actually the true church. Everyone's in their egos, blah, blah, blah. But you're the one that's not egotistical, right? Oh, so the Orthodox and Roman Catholics, they are stuck in their egos, but you're not egotistical, right? You're not egotistical. You're a humble, pious man. Fucking idiot. So, Saint Gregory the Great's liturgy is the pre-sanctified. Yes, yeah, that was the one. Pre-sanctified liturgy is doing it. Yeah. Do you think the Orthodox need? I guess he's asking the other schizo guy. What was that book by Father Seraphim Rose? Vita Patrum. So I'm gonna be linking that to you. Vita Patrum, the life of the Father, Saint Gregory of Tours. Yeah, Hebrew roots fixation. Yeah, like pure languages. Like you gotta say Yahweh. You gotta say Yahweh, bro. That's the real term. That's the real name of God. It's like, oh man, like you want to be if you want to be Hebrew so much, go have a circumcision and leave us alone. Um, but yeah, uh, it's just funny to it's just like that kind of stuff just funny to me. Like the behavior is like I think like my like it's just that I just know from my own life that there's like some people that you can't really speak to and talk to because they love the sound of their own voice, like me. But like jokes aside, the best way is to kind of just say, you know, you love your own voice, goodbye. Like just like crazy fixation on 200 is that $247? The Far Surfing Rose book? Oh, let me find you a better one because there's a PDF of it. There's a PDF. Okay, search Father Seraphim Rose Vita Patrum on Google. You will literally find a PDF of it on Google in the first page. Like, you can find it that way, right? Let me make sure this is the correct one. Let me confirm. All right, the Patriots are monitoring the situation. The Patriots are confirming the situation right now, and the Patriots have verified the situation. It is indeed the PDF. The PDF has been found on Google. Just search it on Google. What is your view on the conversion of Hagia Sophia and Korah Church into mosques? I don't care, to be honest. It's like not a big deal. Can I still go to church and worship God? Yeah, that's the most important thing to me. My take on it is perfectly illustrated in this tweet. All right. Let me see. What was it? I used the term Phoenix. It doesn't. Oh my goodness. There we go. I didn't use the. Okay, so Orthodoxy is the religion of life and resurrection. It does not chase old landmarks in order to stay alive. Whenever it is killed, it rises from its ashes and sprouts life anew. This is why, as beautiful as the Hagia Sophia is, and as wonderful Constantinople may be with its history, fantasizing about it is a waste of time. Our faith does not reside in Byzantium, but it resides in Jesus Christ. Our city is not Constantinople. Our city is the city of God. And I'll link the tweet here. That's my take on it. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah, well, the a lot of Father Seraphim Rose's books are available on PDFs. You can read them. I have PDFs of them. I'm just waiting to read them. Like, you know, Father Seraphim Rose wrote that book, and like the money doesn't go to the like monasteries, etc. It goes to Amazon. And like the guy who's like making money off of selling books like that. Wait. All right, we are arriving at the 2 hour mark, so I'm gonna close this stream soon. But I'll answer the final question. This is the final question. So I'll answer this quickly. What do you think about Saint Irenaeus' works? Good, read them. Against Heresies, excellent work. Demonstration of the Apostolic Preaching, I read that. It's a short work. It's decent, but Against Heresies is a really good book. You should read that. Maximus asks, is God everywhere present and fill all things? No, he says, is God everywhere, and what does that mean in your opinion? Well, we say that God is everywhere present and filleth all things. But what does that mean that God is omnipresent? It means he is beyond a earthly presence. By the way, I talk about these things in my previous video, which is the exposition of the Orthodox faith by St. John Damascus. I will recommend you check that video out on my channel. Look at exposition of the Orthodox faith by St. John Damascus. Talk about the nature of God, the Holy Trinity, and the divine energies. But God is omnipresent because he is beyond earthly presence. He is not present in a location at a time. He is beyond the concept of being present anywhere, right? So he does fill all things by doing so because he creates all things, and he can, God can manifest his appearance here, and simultaneously he can manifest it in America because he, is omnipresent. That's what kind of means that he. Whereas angels, for example, have to travel from place to place, right? So that's the difference between the incorporeality of the angels and the incorporeality of God. However, this does not mean that God's essence is present in these things, right? So God's essence is not present here. So pantheism is wrong. How is that then the case? How can God fill all things and be present everywhere, but his essence is beyond our reach? Well, God is present and permeates his existence through his divine energies, and he especially manifests his presence in time and space by his own free choice. He can do that because he is beyond presence, but being beyond presence doesn't mean that being present in a place contradicts you, right? It means you're essentially beyond presence, but you can still choose out of your own free choice to, manifest your presence. For example, the theophanies in the Old Testament, for example, the incarnation, right? God chooses to take on a human body, and so the properties of humanity do not contradict the divine nature. The only thing that contradicts the divine nature is evil. And so God, while essentially being beyond all of these human categories of existence, etc., in his energies, he still permeates his existence everywhere, and he can manifest it anywhere, anytime, according to what he desires by his own free choice. And that's what it means that God is everywhere present and filleth all things. And LibGen is our friend in book, guys? Yes, it is. And I will finito the stream here. Thank you for watching the stream. Thank you, especially to everyone who has super chatted me. And Steve, I'm sorry, okay, what specific video did you mention again? Just look at my channel, Exposition of the Orthodox Faith. Just type that, it'll come up. Or you can click on my channel link, and it'll literally be there right in front of you. It's the Exposition of the Orthodox Faith by St. John Damascus. It's a video on that. What is auto? Can God heal things like, okay, God can heal everything. He's the physician of our souls and bodies. You will go to church if you didn't have insomnia. I think that's it. I'll be honest, I think that's an excuse. I think you need to give a shot, talk to the priest, explain you to your priest about the struggles that you're going through, the problems that you have, because Christ is the physician of our souls and bodies. And as the physician of our souls and bodies, he can heal us from every ailment and every temptation. Remember that temptations and the sins that you struggle through, the sins that we struggle through do not define us. They only define us if we participate willingly in those sins. But the struggles we face, they do not define us, or struggle against them, or competition, or response against them is what empowers us. And so we need to ask help from the physician of our souls, from Christ, and also through the intercessions of the physician saints like Saint Pantaleimon will definitely also help. But I will recommend to you, go to church on a Sunday, do your absolute best to be able to go there, right? Just do it. Talk to the priest, explain your condition, ask him if he can, give you time to talk about it, and see where it goes from there, right? This is, issues like this, problems like this are solved through prayer and fasting, usually. And, I will also say, I suppose, therapy, I'm not someone who's an expert on that kind of topic. I mean, I know the late Dr. Joseph Nicolosi talks a lot about that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's related to this, though. So that's what my answer will be. And I think that's all I have. David, I'm off to had fun that one time in the Twitter space together. Yeah, that was a fun time. I wanna be in a Twitter space like that again, but we'll see if that happens. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the stream. It's time to close out. Thank you all for the super chats, and I will see all of you in the next stream or video.